We already did this once. We ranked 10 SNES games that were specifically designed to break you, and you came back. You watched the whole thing. You argued in the comments, and a lot of you said the same thing. You said we left games off the list. You said there were games we didn't cover that were just as brutal, just as unforgiving, just as personally offensive as anything we put on Part 1. And you were right, so here we are. Part 2, 10 more SNES games that were designed to make you quit. And just like last time, we're saving the worst for last. If you think you know what number 1 is, drop it in the comments right now before we get into it. Let's see how many of you get it right. If this is your first time here, and you grew up with a Super Nintendo, hit that subscribe button right now. This channel was built for you. Let's get into it. Number 10, The Lion King, 1994. Let's start here, because The Lion King is the perfect example of a game that had absolutely no excuse to be this hard. This was a Disney movie, one of the greatest animated films ever made. Kids across America were obsessed with it. Parents were lining up to buy anything with Simba's face on it. And then they bought this game, handed it to their 8-year-old, and watched that child suffer. The Lion King, developed by Westwood Studios and published by Virgin Games in 1994, is a side-scrolling platformer that starts out manageable, and then, somewhere around the second level, decides it is done being reasonable. The first stage, the Pride Lands, is fine. It eases you in. You're jumping on animals, rolling through enemies, feeling pretty good about yourself. And then you hit the Elephant Graveyard. The Elephant Graveyard is where the Lion King reveals its true personality. The platforms are narrow. The enemies are aggressive. The hit detection is inconsistent in ways that feel deliberate. And the jumping mechanics have just enough floatiness to them that you'll misjudge a landing you were sure you had, fall into a pit, and lose a life you couldn't afford to lose. But the level that broke the most kids, the level that ended the most playthroughs, was the Stampede. You're running from a wildebeest stampede, jumping from animal to animal while the screen scrolls automatically and the margin for error is almost nothing. You don't get to set the pace. The game sets the pace. And if you're not fast enough, precise enough, or lucky enough, you die. Over and over again. In a Disney game. Based on a movie about a lion cub finding his place in the world. The Lion King is number 10 on this list because it's more frustrating than it is technically demanding. But make no mistake, it absolutely belongs here. And if you gave this to a kid expecting a fun afternoon, you owe that kid an apology. Number 9, Pocky and Rocky, 1992. Here's one that a lot of people have never heard of, and that's a shame. Because Pocky and Rocky is genuinely one of the most fun games on the Super Nintendo. It's also one of the most quietly brutal. Pocky and Rocky, developed by Natsumi and published by Taito in 1992, is a top-down shooter where you play as a shrine maiden and a tanuki running through stages, blasting supernatural enemies with cards, leaves, and various other projectiles. The art style is gorgeous. The music is fantastic. The 2-player co-op is a blast. On the surface, this game looks like a good time. And it is a good time. Right up until it isn't. The difficulty in Pocky and Rocky escalates in a way that catches most players completely off guard. The early stages are manageable. The enemy patterns are readable. You feel like you've got a handle on things. And then the game shifts gears and starts throwing enemy combinations at you that require precise movement, precise shooting, and a level of spatial awareness that most people don't develop until they've died enough times to memorize the patterns. The boss fights are where this game really shows its teeth. They're fast, they're aggressive, and they punish hesitation. Stand still for even a second, and you're taking damage. Move in the wrong direction, and you've walked into a projectile you didn't see coming. The bosses in this game demand that you be constantly moving, constantly shooting, and constantly aware of everything on screen at the same time. The 2-player mode, which sounds like it should make things easier, actually makes certain sections harder because the enemy count scales up with the number of players. You bring a friend to help you, and the game responds by throwing more things at both of you. That's not generosity. That's a challenge. Pocky and Rocky is number 9 on this list because it's hard in a way that sneaks up on you. It doesn't announce itself. It just quietly raises the stakes until you realize you're in over your head. And by then, it's too late. Number 8, Plok, 1993. Plok is a game that most people have either never heard of or remember, with a very specific kind of frustration. Developed by Software Creations and published by TradeWest in 1993, Plok is a precision platformer starring a flag-obsessed character who throws his own limbs as weapons. That's a genuinely creative concept. The execution is also genuinely creative and genuinely punishing. The early levels of Plok are deceptive. The game has a bright, colorful visual style and a soundtrack that is, without exaggeration, one of the best on the entire Super Nintendo. The music alone makes you want to keep playing. And for the first few worlds, the difficulty is manageable. Tricky in spots, but fair. And then the flea levels start. At a certain point in Plok, your limbs get stolen by fleas, and you have to fight through stages as a limbless, weaponless character who can only jump. No throwing, no attacking, just jumping. In levels that are specifically designed to be as difficult as possible for a character with no offensive capability. You're dodging enemies you can't fight, navigating platforms that require precise timing, and doing all of it without the tools the game spent the first half teaching you to rely on. It's a design choice that is either brilliant or sadistic, depending on how many times it's killed you. And it will kill you, repeatedly, in ways that feel personal. The later stages of Plok ramp up the difficulty in ways that go beyond the flea levels. The platforming becomes more demanding. The enemy placement becomes more aggressive. And the whole thing has this quality, where it feels like the developers were genuinely proud of how hard they made it, which is either admirable or infuriating, depending on your mood. Plok is number 8 on this list because it earns its difficulty honestly. It's not cheap, it's not broken, it's just hard in a way that demands more from you than most games on the system were willing to ask. Number 7, UN Squadron, 1991. Let's talk about a game that most people who owned a Super Nintendo in 1991 either loved or never finished, usually both. UN Squadron, developed and published by Capcom in 1991, is a horizontally scrolling shooter based on the manga and anime series Area 88. You pilot a fighter jet through enemy territory, blowing up tanks, ships, aircraft, and fortified installations, while managing a surprisingly deep upgrade system that lets you customize your loadout between missions. On paper, it sounds like exactly the kind of game you'd want to spend a Saturday afternoon with. And it is, right up until the game decides you've had enough fun. The enemy density in UN Squadron is relentless. Projectiles fill the screen. Ground targets shoot at you from below, while air enemies attack from above and the sides. The game is constantly demanding that you be in multiple places at once, and since you can only be in one place at a time, you're going to take hits. A lot of hits. The boss fights are a particular kind of demanding. They're large, they're aggressive, and they have attack patterns that require memorization and precise positioning to survive. Get your positioning wrong, and you're eating damage you can't afford. Get your loadout wrong, and you've made the fight significantly harder than it needed to be. But here's the thing about UN Squadron that separates it from a lot of other hard games on this list. The upgrade system means that your choices between missions actually matter. Buy the wrong weapons, invest in the wrong upgrades, and you'll find yourself in a later mission completely unprepared for what the game throws at you. It's not just about reflexes, it's about strategy. And if your strategy is wrong, the game will let you know in the most direct way possible. UN Squadron is number 7 on this list because it's hard in a way that rewards mastery. If you put in the time, if you learn the patterns and make the right upgrade decisions, the game becomes manageable. But getting to that point requires a level of commitment that a lot of players simply didn't have, and the ones who gave up early never knew what they were missing. Number 6, Super R-Type, 1991. Here's one that belongs in the conversation for the hardest shooter ever released on the Super Nintendo, and it's not even close. Super R-Type, developed by Irem and published by Nintendo in 1991, is a horizontally scrolling shooter that looks incredible, sounds incredible, and plays like it was specifically designed to destroy your will to live. The graphics were some of the best on the system at launch. The enemy designs are creative and genuinely intimidating. The music sets a tone that makes you feel like you're flying into something you might not come back from. That feeling is accurate. Here's the thing about Super R-Type that nobody warned you about when you rented it from Blockbuster. When you die, and you will die, the game sends you back to the beginning of the stage. Not a checkpoint in the middle, not a respawn near where you fell. The beginning of the entire stage, with no power-ups. And the power-up system in R-Type is everything. Your ship starts out weak. You build it up over the course of a stage by collecting upgrades, attaching the force pod to your ship, stacking weapons and options until you're a genuinely formidable piece of machinery. And then, one enemy catches you at the wrong angle, and it's all gone. You're back at the start of the stage with nothing, trying to survive the same gauntlet that just killed you with the weakest possible version of your ship. It's the same death spiral that makes Gradius 3 so brutal, but Super R-Type executes it with a particular efficiency that is almost impressive. The stages are long enough that losing all your progress hurts. The enemies are positioned specifically to punish underpowered ships. And the bosses, which you have to reach at the end of each stage before you can move on, are designed for a fully powered ship. Show up underpowered, and you're going to find out exactly how much that matters. Super R-Type is number 6 on this list because it combines punishing mechanics with genuinely demanding level design in a way that very few games on the system managed to match. It is not a game for the impatient. It is not a game for the easily frustrated. And it is absolutely not a game you want to rent on a Friday night expecting a relaxing weekend. Number 5, Ghoul Patrol, 1994. If you watched part 1 of this series, you know that Zombies Ate My Neighbors made the list. But Ghoul Patrol is the sequel. And if you thought the original was rough, Ghoul Patrol looked at everything that made Zombies Ate My Neighbors hard and decided to turn every single dial up. Ghoul Patrol, developed by LucasArts and published by JVC in 1994, takes the same top-down format as its predecessor and strips away most of the charm while keeping all of the difficulty. The colorful, goofy energy of the original is largely gone. What's left is a harder, meaner, less forgiving game that punishes mistakes with a severity that the first game never quite reached. The enemy density is higher. The level design is more aggressive. The weapons are less plentiful, and the ammo runs out faster. And the neighbors, the civilians you're supposed to be protecting, are even harder to keep alive than they were in the original. You'll watch them die to enemies you couldn't reach in time, in rooms you didn't know they were in, and there's nothing you can do about it except watch your options narrow. The boss fights in Ghoul Patrol are a significant step up from anything in Zombies Ate My Neighbors. They're larger, more aggressive, and require a level of preparation that the game doesn't always give you the resources to achieve. Show up to a boss fight with the wrong weapons and low ammo, and you're going to spend a lot of time staring at a game over screen. What makes Ghoul Patrol particularly frustrating is that it never quite reaches the heights of the original. It's harder, but it's not better. It demands more from you without giving you more in return. And that combination, higher difficulty with lower reward, is one of the most demoralizing things a game can do to a player. Ghoul Patrol is number 5 on this list because it earns its spot through sheer relentlessness. It doesn't let up. It doesn't give you a moment to breathe. And it will absolutely make you quit if you're not ready for what it's asking. Number 4, Super Castlevania 4, 1991. Now, we're getting into the games that defined a generation of suffering on the Super Nintendo. And Super Castlevania 4 is one of the most important entries on this entire list, because it's hard in a way that feels earned, in a way that feels like the developers respected you enough to make you work for every inch of progress. Super Castlevania 4, developed and published by Konami in 1991, is one of the greatest games ever made for the Super Nintendo. The music is iconic. The atmosphere is incredible. Simon Belmont walking through Dracula's castle with a whip is one of the defining images of the entire 16-bit era. Nobody is disputing any of that. But let's be honest about something. This game was hard. Genuinely, legitimately, pull your hair out hard. The controls are the first thing that gets you. Simon Belmont moves with a deliberate weight that demands adjustment. He's not slow, exactly, but he's committed. Every action has a follow-through. Every jump has a landing. And the level design is built around that weight in ways that punish you for forgetting it. You'll try to react quickly and find that Simon is still finishing the last thing you asked him to do. The knockback is what really does it, though. Every time you take a hit in Super Castlevania 4, you get knocked backwards, and the game is specifically designed to put enemies right next to ledges, staircases, and bottomless pits. You take a hit, you fly backwards, you fall off the platform, and you either die or you have to climb back up and do it all over again. It's a mechanic that the original Castlevania used on the NES, and Konami brought it to the SNES fully intact. The later stages of this game are some of the most demanding platforming on the entire system. The clock tower, the rotating rooms, the stages where the level itself is moving while enemies are attacking from every direction. These are sections that require patience, memorization, and a willingness to die enough times to understand exactly what the game is asking of you. Super Castlevania 4 is number 4 on this list because it's hard in a way that makes you better. Every death teaches you something. Every failed attempt gets you a little closer to understanding what the game wants. And when you finally push through a section that's been killing you for an hour, the satisfaction is real. But getting there is going to cost you. Number 3, Super Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back, 1993. We need to take a moment before we get into this one, because Super Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back isn't just a hard game. It's a specific kind of hard that a certain generation of American kids experienced together, separately, in living rooms across the country, and most of them never finished it. Super Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back, developed by LucasArts and published by JVC in 1993. The original Super Star Wars was already a demanding game. It was tough, it was unforgiving, and it asked more of players than most licensed games were willing to ask. The Empire Strikes Back looked at all of that and said, "We can do worse." And they did. The platforming in this game is aggressive in a way that the first game never quite reached. The enemy placements is more punishing. The hit detection has moments that feel genuinely unfair, and the difficulty spikes. The moments where the game suddenly asks significantly more of you than it has been asking come without warning and without mercy. The Hoth levels are where most players first realize what they've gotten themselves into. You're running through an ice planet, fighting Imperial troops, navigating platforms over frozen chasms, and the game is throwing enemies at you from every direction with a relentlessness that feels personal. The controls are tight enough that you can't blame the game for most of your deaths. You just weren't good enough. And the game is very comfortable letting you know that. The boss fights in The Empire Strikes Back are a particular kind of demanding. AT-AT walkers, Darth Vader himself, enemies that require specific strategies and precise execution to defeat. Get your approach wrong, and you're burning through lives you can't afford to lose. And the continues are limited, which means a bad run through a late game stage can send you back further than you want to think about. Here's what makes this game earn its spot at number 3. It's not just hard. It's hard in a way that feels like it's testing whether you actually want to be there, whether you're committed enough to push through. Most people weren't. Most people rented this game, hit a wall somewhere in the middle, and returned it to Blockbuster on Sunday night, having seen maybe half of what the game had to offer. And the half they didn't see was harder than the half they did. Number 2, R-Type 3, The Third Lightning, 1994. If Super R-Type was brutal, R-Type 3. The Third Lightning is what happens when the developers looked at Super R-Type and decided it wasn't brutal enough. R-Type 3, developed by Irem and published by Nintendo in 1994, is widely considered one of the hardest shooters ever released on the Super Nintendo. And that is a category with serious competition. The graphics are stunning. The enemy designs are some of the most creative and genuinely unsettling on the system. The Force Pod system, which lets you attach and detach a weapon module from your ship, is deeper and more flexible than anything in the previous games. None of that makes it easier. The enemy patterns in R-Type 3 are designed with a precision that borders on cruelty. Projectiles come from angles you don't expect. Enemies appear from off-screen with almost no warning. The level geometry is used as a weapon against you, with tight corridors and narrow passages that force you into the path of things that will kill you. And the game does all of this while maintaining the same brutal checkpoint system that made Super R-Type so punishing. Die, and you go back. No power-ups. No mercy. Just the beginning of the stage and everything you just lost. The Force Pod system, which is the game's most interesting mechanic, is also the source of some of its most punishing moments. There are 3 different Force types to choose from, and the right choice for one section of a stage might be the wrong choice for the next section. Make the wrong call, and you're fighting the rest of the stage with a tool that isn't suited for what the game is throwing at you. And since you can't change your Force type mid-stage, you're committed to that decision until you either finish the stage or die trying. The later stages of R-Type 3 are some of the most demanding content on the entire SNES library. The enemy density reaches levels that require near-perfect play from a fully powered ship. The boss fights are long, aggressive, and punishing of any mistake. And the game's own mechanics make it almost impossible to arrive at those stages fully powered, because the road to get there is designed to kill you. R-Type 3 is number 2 on this list, because it is, by almost any measure, one of the hardest games ever released on the Super Nintendo. It demands more from you than most games are willing to ask. And it offers no apologies for any of it. But it is only number 2, because there is one game on this list that is worse. One game that takes everything R-Type 3 does and adds a layer of difficulty that is almost hard to believe. Number 1, Super Castlevania 4, Stage 15, and the Dracula Fight, 1991. Wait, you've already seen Super Castlevania 4 on this list. It was number 4. So why is it back at number 1? Because there's a difference between Super Castlevania 4 and the final stretch of Super Castlevania 4, and that difference is significant enough that it deserves its own conversation. Here's the thing about Super Castlevania 4 that most people who played it casually never discovered. The game is hard from the beginning. We already covered that. The knockback, the weight of the controls, the aggressive enemy placement, all of it is present from stage 1. But the game is manageable for most of its length. Demanding, yes. Punishing, absolutely. But manageable. And then you reach the final stages. Stage 15 of Super Castlevania 4 is a different game entirely. The difficulty doesn't just increase, it transforms. The enemy placement becomes surgical. The platforming becomes unforgiving in ways that the earlier stages never hinted at. The level design stops giving you room to breathe and starts filling every available space with something that wants to knock you backwards off a ledge. The knockback mechanic, which was already punishing, becomes the central weapon the game uses against you. Every hit is a potential death. Every death is a potential setback that sends you back further than you want to go. And then there's Dracula. The Dracula fight at the end of Super Castlevania 4 is one of the most demanding boss encounters on the entire Super Nintendo. 2 forms, aggressive patterns. A first form that requires precise positioning and disciplined whip usage to survive, followed immediately by a second form that changes the rules entirely. You don't get a break between forms. You don't get to heal. You go from one to the other with whatever health you have left. And if you made mistakes getting there, you're going to feel every one of them. The approach to Dracula is just as punishing as the fight itself. The final stages leading up to him are designed to drain your resources, your lives, and your patience before you ever reach the throne room. By the time you get there, you've already been through more than most games ask of you in their entirety, and then the game asks for more. Most people who played Super Castlevania 4 never saw the Dracula fight, not because they didn't try, because the final stretch of this game is a wall that the vast majority of players hit and never got past. The ones who did, the ones who actually stood in that throne room and took Dracula apart piece by piece, those people have a story to tell, a real one. Super Castlevania 4's final act is the hardest thing on this list. Not because it's broken, not because it's unfair, but because it is perfectly, deliberately, almost beautifully designed to find the absolute limit of what you're capable of, and then ask you for just a little bit more. That's the number 1 game on this list, and we'll stand by that. Now, we know some of you are going to disagree. Some of you are going to say R-Type 3 should be number 1, because the checkpoint system alone makes it the most punishing game on the system. Some of you are going to say Super Star Wars. The Empire Strikes Back deserves the top spot because the combination of platforming and enemy aggression is unmatched. Some of you are going to say we should have put something else on this list entirely. Something we missed. Something that broke you in a way we haven't talked about yet. And honestly, we want to hear all of it. So there it is. 10 more games. 10 more ways the Super Nintendo tried to break you. From The Lion King making kids cry over a Disney movie, to Super Castlevania 4's final act, demanding everything you had and then asking for more. Every single one of these games required something from you. Patience, precision, memorization, and in some cases a stubbornness that most people simply didn't have. And here's the thing, we loved them anyway. We rented them on Friday nights and stayed up until 2 in the morning, trying to get past stages that were designed to stop us. We talked about them at work on Monday morning like they were unsolved mysteries, because they were. Hard in a way that meant something. There was no walkthrough to bail you out. No video showing you the exact pattern. It was just you, the controller, and the game. And either you figured it out, or you didn't. Now we want to hear from you. Do you agree with this list? Is there a game we left off that deserves to be here? Do you think R-Type 3 should be number 1? Do you think The Empire Strikes Back belongs higher? Is there a game that broke you that we haven't covered in either part of this series? Drop it in the comments right now. We read every single one, and this is exactly the kind of debate this community was built for. If you haven't seen part 1 yet, go watch it. The link is right here. And if you want more content like this, deep dives into the games that defined a generation, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so you don't miss what's coming next. We've got a lot more where this came from. Thanks for watching. Now go find that old SNES in your parents' garage. You've still got unfinished business.